There is a berry that looks like it was designed to survive the end of the world. It ripens in the fall when everything else is shutting down. It hangs in clusters like small red lanterns. It is tart, bright, and edible. Birds love it. Deer move through it. And the shrub that makes it can take over abandoned fields so completely that the land stops looking like land and starts looking like a single species pretending to be an ecosystem. It was not an accident. This plant was imported, promoted, and planted on purpose. For conservation, for erosion control, for wildlife habitat, for reclamation of damaged ground. And then, once it was everywhere, the narrative changed. States began listing it as prohibited. Land managers began treating it like an invader. People began cutting it, spraying it, and warning their neighbors not to plant it. The same shrub that agencies once recommended became something you cannot legally buy or cultivate in parts of the United States. This is the story of autumn olive. Autumn olive is a shrub originally from Asia, known to botanists as Elaeagnus umbellata. If you have seen it up close, you remember it. Leaves with a silvery sheen, small pale yellow flowers in spring, and later the fruit, red berries speckled with silver. It is easy to underestimate at first, because it does not look like a predator. It looks like a helper, a hardy shrub doing hardy shrub things. And that is exactly how it was sold. Autumn olive was brought into the United States in the 1800s and used widely in the decades after for windbreaks, wildlife cover, roadsides, and erosion control. It was praised for thriving where other plantings failed, in poor soils, on disturbed ground, and along harsh edges where the land had been scraped down to exhaustion. This was the pitch. A plant that doesn't need much. A plant that grows fast, a plant that stabilizes soil, a plant that feeds birds. In other words, a plant engineered by evolution to be an early succession, dominant shrub in disturbed landscapes. So it was planted, and planted, and planted, along highways, around farms, in conservation plantings, on the edges of new developments, in the places where humans disturb land, and then want the land to behave. But nature doesn't sign contracts. Once autumn olive established, it did what successful species do. It expanded. It moved beyond the places we planted it and into the places we didn't. It invaded open fields, woodland edges, disturbed forests, and grasslands. It formed dense stands that shaded out other plants and changed what could survive underneath it. And that is where the modern war begins. Not because autumn olive is weak, because it is strong. Before we go any deeper, let us know what you think about autumn olives. Have you encountered them before? Don't forget to like the video and subscribe. Now let's talk about why this shrub became unstoppable, because this is the part most people never hear. Autumn olive doesn't just tolerate poor soil, it upgrades it. This plant forms root nodules that allow it to fix atmospheric nitrogen through a microbial partnership. In plain language, it pulls fertility out of the air and injects it into the soil. That sounds like a miracle, and in the right context, it can be. But ecosystems are not just better when there is more nitrogen. Many native plant communities are adapted to scarcity. Low nutrient systems favor certain species, certain relationships, certain slow balances. When you introduce a nitrogen-fixing invader into a low-nutrient landscape, you don't just add a plant. You change the rules. Research in invaded areas has documented higher net nitrogen mineralization and nitrification beneath autumn olive compared to nearby open field sites, and higher nitrate concentrations in soil water. That matters because it means the plant isn't merely competing with natives for sunlight and space. It is chemically remodeling the ground beneath it. It is turning the soil into a version of the world where it and other fast-growing species have an advantage. And then there is the reproduction strategy. Autumn olive produces heavy crops of fruit. The seeds are spread by birds, which means the plant doesn't need you. It doesn't need machines. It doesn't need intentional propagation. It recruits the sky. Depending on the source and method, estimates for mature plants range from tens of thousands of seeds per year. One U.S. Forest Service summary describes an estimate of roughly 66,000 seeds per mature plant per year based on fruit and seed weights. A National Park Service summary provides a comparable framing, with seed production measured in pounds per year and tens of thousands of seeds per pound. Either way, the lesson is the same. This plant doesn't just spread, it manufactures a future. Now combine those two traits, nitrogen fixation and massive bird-driven dispersal, with a third trait that makes autumn olive the perfect invader. It thrives in disturbed landscapes, and we live in a nation of disturbance. Roadsides, clearcuts, abandoned fields, overgrazed edges, construction scars, utility corridors, fence lines. The gaps we create are exactly where this shrub is built to move. We want a plant that grows fast on damaged ground. Then we act shocked when it grows fast on damaged ground. And the strangest part is that while the plant was being declared a problem, another reality was hiding in plain sight. The berries are edible, not as a cute novelty, not as technically edible, as real fruit. Tart, astringent, bright. The kind of flavor that makes you understand why people turn it into jam, sauce, fruit leather, and preserves. The kind of flavor that can anchor a pantry when you know what you are looking at. But here is where the story becomes uncomfortable. Because autumn olive isn't just edible. It is nutritionally interesting in a way that feels almost like a dare. USDA researchers reported autumn olive berries containing lycopene in a range roughly around 15 to 54 milligrams per 100 grams of fresh fruit, compared to around 3 milligrams per 100 grams in raw tomatoes. That is where the phrase comes from, up to about 17 times the lycopene of tomato. And if you've ever heard lycopene mentioned, it's usually in the context of tomatoes, watermelon, and human health research. So the headline writes itself. An invasive shrub produces a berry with an antioxidant profile strong enough to become a health food product. And yet the plant is restricted, prohibited, and targeted for removal across many regions. This is where most stories about autumn olive become childish. People pick a side. Either they worship the plant because it is free food, or they hate the plant because it is invasive. But the truth is sharper. Both things can be real at the same time. A plant can produce useful food and still be ecologically disruptive. A plant can be a gift to the forager and a nightmare to a prairie. A plant can be survival and damage in the same body. So what did institutions do when the consequences became undeniable? They reversed the message. Where autumn olive had once been planted for wildlife and erosion control, many agencies and land managers began urging removal. Cutting and treating stumps, repeated management, and preventing spread became common recommendations. And in some places, it didn't stop at recommendations. Some states wrote it into law. Connecticut lists autumn olive under its invasive plant statute, restricting actions like import, movement, sale, purchase, transplanting, cultivation, and distribution, with certain exceptions defined by law. New York lists Elaeagnus umbellata as a prohibited invasive species under state regulation, restricting activities like sale, importation, purchase, transport, and propagation. Massachusetts includes autumn olive on its prohibited plant list. That means in parts of the country, this is not just a bad landscaping choice. It is legally restricted. Now, it is important to be precise. Autumn olive is not illegal everywhere in the United States. Regulations vary by state and sometimes by context. But that variability is part of the point. This plant exists at the intersection of food, ecology, and policy. And when something sits at that intersection, the story is never simple. So here is the deeper narrative, beneath the berries, beneath the bans. Autumn olive reveals how quickly human systems change their moral language about plants. In one era, it is conservation. In the next era, it is invasion. In one era, planting it is considered responsible. In the next era, planting it is considered negligence. The plant did not change. The plant kept doing what it was designed to do. We changed. Our priorities changed. Our understanding changed. Our landscapes changed. And the consequences caught up. When consequences catch up, institutions do what institutions always do. They rewrite the story. They do not say that they promoted a shrub without understanding how it would behave at scale. Instead, they say this plant is a problem, and the public learns a new rule: remove it, cut it, kill it. Do not talk about it as food. That is the pattern you should be watching for, because it appears again and again across the American landscape. Plants that were promoted because they solve a short-term problem are then demonized because they create a long-term one. And somewhere in the middle, the actual human uses, food, medicine, craft, history, get erased because the plant has been assigned a single identity: enemy. So what should you do with this knowledge? First, do not romanticize an invasive plant. If you live in a region where autumn olive is invading, it can displace native communities and reshape habitat. That is real. Second, do not pretend the berries are not food just because the shrub is controversial. That is also real. Third, do not plant it. Not as a hack, not as a survival hedge, not because you think you are being clever. If your local regulations restrict it, follow the law. If your region is battling it, do not be the person who restarts the invasion cycle. And if you already have it on your land, understand the paradox. Every cluster of berries is nutrition you can harvest, and also a cloud of future seeds waiting for birds to carry them outward. If this video changed how you see helpful plants and problem plants, ask yourself this: how many other species were introduced as a fix only to become a permanent cost? If you want the next episode, like this video and subscribe.